Berkeley-Stanford rivalry. But for whatever reason, we haven't touched base too much until now. So I'm really excited to talk today and sort of have the opportunity to show you guys what we're up to, and I'm hoping it'll lead to more collaboration in the future.
Sounds great.
So, FreeLA Project. I'm basically just here to talk about what FreeLA Project is and what we're doing, and a little bit of history, some of our projects, and one of our big goals, which I'll get to in a second, is working with researchers and startups. And so getting the word out, I think, is not our strongest suit because we're usually pretty focused on our various initiatives. But we want to have people like everyone down there at CodeX. We want to have you working with us, and we want to have your ideas, and we want to help you to want to provide data so your ideas can come to fruition and things like that. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but what I really just want to start off taking a step back is who I am. I'm the director of FreeLA Project. It's a small organization. We're a 501c3. And so that I'm the director, but you'll also see on the slide, I'm the lead developer for our technical work. I'm also the lead developer for our organizational development. These are not usually hats that the same person wears, but I've been doing it for a little while now, and I do enjoy it, so it kind of works out okay. The accountant I could do without, but I'm also the researcher, which I also enjoy. We've been doing this a little while now. I started officially working on this as a full-time gig several years ago. But prior to that, the original kernel of the idea started while I was at Berkeley at the School of Information back in 2010. And the idea then was just, how do you keep up with the opinions coming out of the circuit courts? If you're interested in copyright and you want to know anytime there's a copyright-related opinion, how do you even get an email that day? And at the time, and I believe to this date, there wasn't a particularly good tool for that. I think Westlaw provides a tool for that sort of thing, that sort of awareness, but it's not very fast and it doesn't have a lot of flexibility. And so the original project was, let's just follow these web pages where they post the opinions, and if there's anything useful to certain people, let's send them an email. So that was back in 2009, 2010 when that happened. And since then, we've been building up the website, which is called CourtListener.com, and just expanding it in different ways. And we're working with different organizations and things like that too. I should also say at the beginning here, I'm not a lawyer. I think there's probably everyone I'm talking to right now is a lawyer, or the vast majority. So correct me when I goof up. If I goof up, I won't take offense. I actually really appreciate it. Talking the talk is part of the game. So, and I enjoy it too. So the big picture, what's FreeLA Project? What do we do? Our projects, initiatives, and then Q&A, and hopefully some demos if I still have time at the end. So I mentioned that we're a 501c3 nonprofit, founded back in 2013, and we get our funding from a variety of sources. Some of it is through grants that we apply for ourselves. Others through contract work for grants that other people are working on. We'll be like a data provider for that. We do fundraising and get donations just from the public. And then we also provide data to startups and, legal organizations and law firms and things like that. And so we get some support that way too, so that we can continue existing and providing the services that we do. But the overall goal really, you can read our mission, but I tried to distill it from sort of the legalese in our mission statement to something that's a little more human-centric. But the idea really is to use data and software to help academics, practitioners, organizations, and journalists to improve the legal world, making it smarter, more competitive, and more innovative. So that's really it. And we've gone about that a number of different ways. The main one, like I said before, is CourtListener.com. And CourtListener is this tool that I started back in 2009 just to keep up with the circuit courts. But since then, we've added, the first API for legal data, for legal opinion. We've added bulk data, so you can download, vast quantities of this data. I haven't checked recently, but at one point, our data was larger than the English version of Wikipedia. Wikipedia has some they're growing rapidly, so I don't know if that's still true, but at a time, it was true. It's a lot of data, it really is. And you can download it in one giant file. So there's email alerts, like I said before. You can make RSS feeds if that's something that you do. You can make podcasts and things like that. But the main four things that we're doing these days are the opinion, where we started. We're expanding into Pacer in a really major way, and that's where a lot of our effort is going now. Is collecting the Pacer data and providing that to whomever needs it. Oral arguments is something that we're experimenting with. We have the biggest collection of oral argument recordings, biggest public collection, I should say, because the courts have their own huge collections also. But the biggest public collection of oral arguments online, with about almost 1 million minutes of oral arguments. And we have a database of judge profiles for state and federal judges. So from there, that's kind of going to form the outline of what I'm going to talk about here. And I think I'm just going to skip forward and start talking some more about opinions. Does anybody have any questions before I get too far along here?
Yeah, here's a question.
Which startups do you work with to develop technology?
We work with a variety of them. I'm not sure how many I should say, but we're in touch with a lot of them. They will, often use our data for prototyping, and or use sort of the daily data that comes in. There's, ILS Tech is one. We've worked briefly with Case Text, I think, when they were in their prototyping stage. Plain Text uses our data as well. Those are both people that are involved with you guys. So yeah, and a lot of what we do actually, the APIs are open for access. So frequently we won't even know that someone is using the data. We'll just see the traffic and be like, who is that? And we'll kind of work backwards. But yeah, there's a variety. Courthouse News, we're in touch with them too. They're supporting us, and they've been good supporters.
We've used your data. Well. I'm in a stealth startup, and we've actually used your data a little bit too. I'll probably have to leave early today, but I wanted to get in touch with you to talk to you a little about it. There's some things that I think we could do together that I think I could probably collect grants for a joint relationship.
That sounds wonderful. And sorry, I can't see the Blue Jeans app, so I'm not sure who's talking.
Jay Bennett. I have a company called ITEA Intelligent Ontologies. I build foundational ontologies, and we're creating a hybrid citation social network for judges in case law, creating new types of algorithms and so forth, new types of rankings. Yeah, so we've downloaded your data and played with it a little bit. We've kind of taken a different approach, but we're always interested in develop small pieces we're still in grant mode, and I want to keep it in grant mode as long as possible.
Yeah. If we don't get a chance to talk, I wish I could be down there, but definitely, shoot me an email, and we can get a conversation going.
I'll send you one right now, just so you have my,
Yeah, sounds great. Any other questions? Okay.
Are you focusing on any other countries or any other languages?
No, that is something that we have briefly considered, but it turns out that the United States is complex enough. Yeah. That said, actually, I will expand on that a little bit. We have talked to people. All of our code is open source, and we have talked to people in India that are talking about taking sort of the backbone of our code and reworking it for some sort of India-centric portal. But I don't know. I think they might have moved on. They kind of came and asked questions and have been quiet for a little while. So
Thank you.
I'm trying to find your email. I'll
give you the email.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at the end. It's Mike@free.law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like I was saying before, the main heart of where we started was with opinions, and at this point we've got about 3.9 million opinions from 402 jurisdictions. We've stayed away from sort of the really lower court stuff like county courts and things like that. So those 402 jurisdictions, that's federal courts, that's state courts, that sort of we call it the court of last resort because it's not always the Supreme Court. And so that's the highest level in each state, and then usually one level below. And then on top of that, we've got like the military courts and some other special jurisdictions like that. Coverage between these different courts can vary. Sometimes it's everything they have on their website and nothing more. Other times, there'll be a really high quality data source like public.resource.org is frequently used, and we'll incorporate that data. So it depends jurisdiction to jurisdiction how high quality the data is. But one place where we have focused is on Supreme Court data. And I think we have the best Supreme Court data that you can get without trying to convince Westlaw or someone like that to give you it. And we've worked on it a lot. It's there. It's good. It goes all the way back since before the United States even existed. And we've also paired it up with the Supreme Court database. So we have a lot of different metadata fields on the data, but they have even more. And you can easily sort of map between the two. And that's something that we do a lot of. If there's ever another high quality source, we will find the mappings if we can, and then that way it's easy for you to use what we have, use what they have, and sort of walk back and forth. Another example of that is in our people database of judges. We have the IDs to the Federal Judicial Center. They have a database of judges, and so you can walk back and forth there too. I mentioned earlier that we're gathering these opinions from the court websites, and we're getting about 300 a day from about 200 courts. So again, that's going to be the courts of last resort for each state. And on the federal side, the circuit courts, but not necessarily the district courts because they're usually inside PACER. And on top of that, we've got the alerts that we started out with. We have the API, the bulk data, searchable interface. This is going to be sort of a mantra as I go along. Alerts, API, bulk data, searchable interface. Those are sort of the core tools that we like to apply to on top of any data source. Another thing we've got here, yeah.
Mike, you're saying the courts of last resort. It's the federal circuit court opinion that you're tracking, and are you tracking state court opinions too, or?
Yeah. So the court of last resort. I say that because, like in New York, the Supreme Court is not the highest court. It's the Court of Appeals in New York. So I try to say that to be the most accurate possible. But yeah, it's the state Supreme Courts typically, or whatever the highest court it calls itself. And then usually one level below if we can get that data. On the federal side, it's going to be the circuit courts, and then the district courts typically, with a few exceptions, they're typically inside PACER, and so we're not getting those opinions just yet.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, the other big feature we have here is that we've cross-linked all the citations. So for every opinion we get, we'll try to find any citation that it has and make it into a hyperlink and put it in the database. And so at this point, we reran our cross-linking code over the last couple of weeks. It takes a long time to run, and we're at about 30 million cross-linked citations. That's growing pretty much every day. The next big thing we're working on outside of opinions is the recap archive. This has been around in different forms for a little while now. It started out of the Center of Information Technology and Policy at Princeton, and we've taken it over for the last couple of years. But the basic idea here is that we have a browser extension called Recap, which is Pacer spelled backwards. So the motto is, turning Pacer around. So you install that in your browser, and whenever you use Pacer, any content that you purchase, you give us a copy. And any content that anybody else has ever purchased, we'll give you a copy for free. So I can't emphasize this enough. If you use Pacer and you care about your money, you should install this extension because you'll start saving money immediately. That's the selfish motivation. Some people are more motivated by altruistic ones. If you're feeling altruistic and you don't mind spending your money, you should install it too, because you'll be contributing your documents to other people that might not have as much money or availability to purchase Pacer documents. We've done a lot of research on Pacer, and we have a lot of criticism of Pacer. You can read all that on our blog. But one thing that we wanted to find out is how much would it cost to purchase everything that's in Pacer based on publicly available numbers. And we're estimating that it would be somewhere around $1 billion to purchase everything. That's based on how many documents they've said they have, times the average length of the document, some rounding errors, et cetera. But the point is that as far as we know, it's the biggest database behind a paywall in the world. And we're trying to break it down basically one document at a time. The more people that are using our recap extension, the more of it will get into this public archive that we call the Recap Archive. Right now, it's got about 20 million docket entries. These are, the descriptions of Pacer documents, and it's got about 5 million documents. We're adding to that regularly. All of the free content that's in Pacer, we're working on downloading that. So we'll have all of that pretty soon and available within the next couple of weeks. And it's not just a matter of having it, right? Again, it's the bulk data, it's the API, it's the searchable interface. We don't have alerts for Pacer data. We're thinking about that. But between all of that, it makes the data much more available for researchers and for startups. And we do OCR as well, which is a big thing. 7 million pages of OCR might not sound like much, but when you do the math, it takes a couple of seconds per page. That's a lot of seconds. So that's another thing that we do for all of the Pacer data that we have. Just shout out if you have any questions, because I don't know if I can only see my presentation as I'm going here because of the app.
I have a further question. I'm curious. The name of your organization, Free.Law, is so great. I'm curious whether you're exploring Creative Commons licensed open courseware for law degrees, in the same way that MIT OpenCourseWare has undergraduate and graduate courseware online, or if you've come into communication with organizations along those lines.
What's the connection between the name and the courseware?
Just that FreeLA courseware would be a further expression of open courseware of FreeLA and paralleling Creative Commons MIT OpenCourseWare, which is for free.
I see what you're saying, yeah. We haven't explored that too much. There is a volunteer right now that's thinking about doing continuing legal education courses that we're sort of involved in. We're sort of discussing that now. But I see no reason to close out that idea. It's an interesting thought.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is just a second slide here on the recap extensions. I think I went through the basics here, but I'll just emphasize again. The URL is there, free.law/recap. If you use Pacer or you know people who do, I can't recommend it enough. Next thing that we've been working on, and this is a bit of more of an experimental project for us because there isn't a ton of people that are innovating in the oral argument domain, and there aren't a ton of people using it for research. So it's not hitting on our main sort of targets. in terms of, sort of our sweet spot for the kinds of work we like to do. But we saw that courts were consistently taking audio off of their website. And so we'd call them up and say, hey, what happened? Like after 3 months, all of you delete things from your site. And they'd say they didn't have the storage space for it. So, we ran the numbers and realized that it costs a penny or two to host an oral argument file. And so we said, all right, look, we're going to do this. So we've been downloading these oral arguments now for several years. We're up to almost a million minutes of it, which I like to put things in perspective. If you like The Simpsons and you feel like having a Simpson marathon would take you a long time, you're right. It would take you a long time. It takes you about 12 days, and that's if you don't sleep and you don't do anything. And this is 53 times that amount. So that's some perspective. And General Hospital I like to throw in there too, because General Hospital has the most episodes, and it's about watching every episode of General Hospital once. So what do we have in here? It's we've got the circuit courts that provide their oral argument audio. The 10th and 11th don't. They, for whatever reason, want to charge money for these. We've been sending some letters and trying to get this on their sort of mental agenda, but we haven't made a ton of progress. The Second Circuit didn't previously, but we lobbied them, and now the Second Circuit is doing it. They're posting their oral argument audio on their site, and we're incorporating it into ours and providing it as podcasts and things like that. A project that we're working on right now is doing automated transcripts for all of this audio. And so when you sort of pair that up with the alerts that we provide, you get to the point where you can get an email at the end of the day anytime a word is said in one of the circuit courts. And that we think is pretty cool. It sort of follows this idea of experimentation with the oral argument audio, and what can be done with it, and why isn't more being done with it, and just sort of putting the data out there to see what people can do. There's a lot of state court oral audio, a lot. We've got a couple of state courts that we've started having their, gathering their data too, but we haven't expanded too much in that area just yet. Any questions on oral arguments before I go on?
No, it's Bruce Cahan. Hi.
Bruce, go ahead.
Rowan. Yeah. There's been certainly in New York State, a concern that the court reporters vary what was actually said in court. Would you be able to look at the transcript and a copy of the court reporter record? And I realize the court reporters charge for this stuff, so you'd have to have one of the parties who bought the record contribute it. But I think it actually goes on a lot. I think the New York judges, particularly in the Supreme Court or the trial court, do a fair amount of editorializing before the record can be seen in certain cases.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard about that. I'm not sure how much we would further that because we're doing automated transcription generation. So you're probably going to wind up being, if you're gonna be sort of analyzing that, you might be better off, getting the audio files and purchasing the transcripts and comparing yourself. But I don't know. There might be room in there to try and compare like the automated version versus the regular, the official version.
It's a concern. It's a real concern in criminal and domestic narrative cases.
Yeah, that sounds like a real problem.
So, what are you doing with the data, if anything, other than making them available? This is a huge data set. I could imagine that it might be interesting to do some machine learning and trying to find some patterns in the oral arguments or in the transcripts of the oral arguments. Is that something you've been thinking about?
Yeah, there's a million things like that. you can probably do the sorts of things where do female voices get interrupted more than male voices? Are certain judges more inclined to interrupt certain people? All these sorts of things I think are wide open for investigation. And we've got the data. We don't typically do that sort of investigation ourselves. It's just a matter of we're waiting for somebody to pick it up and run with it.
Cool.
And we might be able to handle that with you too, if when we meet and you're able to write down what you're interested in doing with that, and if it works with our team, we might be able to do a joint proposal with my funders.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be great. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Go ahead, please.
So, all right. So the last,
you have about
three
more minutes.
3 more minutes. Great. So that's perfect. The last major piece of the puzzle here is our judge database. This is a great example of working with researchers and our own grants to make a really sort of unique resource. This one we worked with a researcher out of Princeton and Columbia. He got NSF money. We got a Knight Foundation grant. And together we built up this database of 8,500 judges from federal and state court. We had a couple of existing sources for that, but we enhanced them in a number of ways, put the API on it, bulk data, made it searchable, included campaign finance data for elected judges. And we've been able to use this to link documents and the opinions and the recap databases. So it's not just that you have, the text of somebody's name, it's actually a relational database now. So you can do things like give me all of the opinions written by a judge that has the gender of male. Give me all of the opinions that were written by a judge that accepted money by, right. So all of these databases through the judge database come together and become relational. And we have other information there too. It's the political affiliations of the judges that we've sort of inferred from, who appointed them, if they're appointed, or what party they were under if they're elected, their educational history, their employment positions, and things like that. A fun judge to look at is actually President Taft. He was a Supreme Court judge and also a president. So you can see his appointments that he made. And you can also, see who appointed him and just sort of go in circles that way. And then we have a variety of other things. We have visualizations from Supreme Court, database of reporters. These are the actual books. And, it's got the different abbreviations and all the different, not all the reporters, but most of the reporters going back all the way. We have a database of courts that we recommend startups use so that we're all using the same identifiers for courts and makes all of the data easier to interchange. The citation graph I mentioned earlier, page rank scores for all the opinions. We have a collection of the seals for many of the courts. Collection of portraits from different judges. And then I think we have the PACER research and fact sheets that I mentioned earlier when I was talking about recap. And so that's everything I wanted to cover in the broad strokes. I wanted to get into a demo too, but it sounds like we're just about out of time for that. Any other questions?
Does anyone online have a question for Mike?
I just tried to go on CourtListener and I couldn't get in.
Couldn't get in how?
On Safari. So.
Do you have the right URL?
CourtListener.com.
Yeah, I will try again. Thank you, guys.
Somebody's asking in the chat if we have GitHub repos. Yeah, you can go to github.com/FreeLA Project. That's where all of our code lives.
Cool. Any other questions for Mike? How many, what's sort of the ecosystem? You said you're working with startups, but, what's sort of the ecosystem of people and organizations around you that are using the resource? Numbers that you could share?
Yeah, we're there. I can give a lot of examples, like we're a data provider for Georgia State University, some research they're doing there on Pacer data. Different startups are using the Opinion database. We have a variety of volunteers that work on different things and features they need. Researchers, they'll be using our data. One way that we actually frequently will expand our different offerings and tools is when somebody sees, like, they'll say the Supreme Court database is great, but wouldn't it be cool if it was linked to this or that, right? Wouldn't it be great if you had summaries for every case? Wouldn't it be great if? And so that's something that we frequently do, is we'll work on a specific project with a researcher so they can do their research, and they'll leave a legacy of improved data for everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great. All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have to run, and I want to turn it over to Haley now. So please join me in a quick round of applause, at least here from Stanford. Thank you, Mike. Thanks again.
Thanks so much.
And I hope to see you down here sometime.
Yeah, sorry I couldn't make it down there today.
Maybe for the big game in the fall.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. See ya. Thank you. All right. Now we'll turn it over to Haley at Doxley.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Like Mike, I'm really excited to be here today. I will go ahead and share my desktop. So just let me know if you are able to see my slide deck first.
Yes.
All right, great.
I can see it, yes.
Awesome, thank you. All right, well, I'm Haley Altman. I'm the founder and CEO of Doxley. We are a secure portal for all sorts of legal transactions. We primarily focus in corporate. My background, I've been an attorney for over 10 years, always focusing on the corporate aspect of the law practice. Started in the Midwest and then ended up joining Wilson Sonsini early on in my practice. Worked in their corporate group for a number of years and then went back to the Midwest to have a family out here and rejoined Ice Miller, ended up making equity partner. And, really throughout my career, really kind of looked at the typical M&A deal process, all of the things that we were doing. It really didn't seem to matter whether I was in the Midwest or on the West Coast or who was on the opposite side of the table. There was just a lot of things about kind of what we're doing where there was all these different systems. So, you had notepads trying to keep track of everything on your to-do list. We were negotiating deals with a lot of email going back and forth. And so your email system sorts to become this kind of almost document repository of what you're working on in the deal. And then there's that constant exchange of documents that comes from your document management system or your Word document checklist in the data room. So there's so many different pieces that you need to keep track of. And then when you add in all of the different parties, it just really starts to become noisy and difficult to organize. So while I was at Ice Miller, it really kind of came to crystallize, what if we could start to bring all of these different aspects of the transaction to one place? What if we could all work from the same platform where we knew what was going on the deal? Because at the end of the day, even though there's at a minimum, two opposing legal parties or legal firms and two parties, we're all working towards the same goal of actually trying to come together to close a transaction. So what we did with creating Doxley is we created a secure portal that really serves as a centralized kind of project management tool for a transaction process. We bring everyone to one place, get people on the same page of what documents need to be reviewed from a diligence perspective and what documents and tasks need to be completed in order for us to close a transaction. So we combine that together with a virtual data room that we built out based on diligence request lists, so data is organized. And then we really wanted to kind of bring the transaction together. So we created our own signature management solution and an opportunity for people to create the closing book at the end of a deal. but wanted to take it one step further than just managing the transaction. In a lot of corporate groups, there's so much data that we have in terms of the deals we're working on or the different aspects. We get asked by clients what's market in a different type of transaction for a certain term. We also get asked to participate in RFPs to gain new business. So with Doxly, we wanted to kind of bring not only the deal together in one place, but allow people to create customized metric ways to capture deal metrics, competitive intelligence, and ways that they can continue to do their business development. So that's really kind of the overarching kind of goal of Doxly, really helping attorneys do more with less while giving them that control and visibility into their deal. And so what I want to do next, and I'll make sure that this allows me to switch over, is give you kind of a glimpse into Doxly itself. So, and anytime there's any questions, feel free to let me know, and I'm happy to kind of slow down and answer them. So in Doxly, what we're doing is trying to give everyone a central place to come to negotiate their deals. And, most counsel across the country, what we wanted to do was kind of keep a similar workflow to what people are used to doing in order to do their deals. We wanted to kind of make it more comfortable to transition technology into their practice by mimicking and enhancing some of the workflows that they're comfortable with. So what you're seeing is the closing checklist, which is kind of one of the key parts of our deal. It's a central location for all of the different documents and tasks that need to get done in a transaction. So what we do is for any different transaction type, when you select that early on in the Doxly process, we create the checklist around the deal. And we use law firms' template checklists so that they're working from what they like to be their standard practice within a deal. When we pull that checklist together, we're getting all of the different things that need to be done from the different stages of a transaction. And then we also have it secure so that we have people log out and get people in. This is our kind of standard dashboard. When an attorney wants to start their day, they're able to see all of the deals that they're working on and insight into their to-do list so they can help themselves plan their day, what needs their attention the most at any given point in the transaction. But what we're also doing is we've got email technology. Every room has an email. So regardless of, so we can pull documents into the system by downloading or uploading them from different DMS systems, but we also keep track of every version. So whatever turn it is by the different law firms, you can keep track of the exchange of documents, see the entire progression and negotiation of the transaction. We allow people to kind of make notes. Team notes are notes that are shared just amongst your law firm, and then the public notes are kind of between everyone on a deal. So if I send out the purchase agreement, I can make a note of, only open item is the purchase price, and I can kind of key off of. I can let people know what's going on in the deal, what are those open issues. We can now kind of come together and negotiate all the different parts of a transaction. So that back and forth exchange of information around the documents, as well as the document versions themselves, can be captured in one place. And then we also, on each of the documents, to kind of help with the flow of information, we allow people to assign them to different people on their team, people that might need to work on the next turn. But you can also set due dates and reminders just to keep everyone on track. So if I know that I sent out the purchase agreement and I'm waiting for opposing counsel to send it back to me, I can set a reminder, okay, I need to keep track of this is when I'm expecting this document to come back, and now I can keep an eye on it and be proactive in moving the deal forward. We also, so we allow for the management of the whole negotiation process, and then we take it a step further to help manage the signature process. And what we wanted to do was not, we had talked to a lot of law firms, and there are some firms that are comfortable adding in DocuSign into their workflow, but there are a lot of firms that are still sending pages out through the manual way, where they send them out via email. And what we wanted to do was make it so that the law firm itself, no matter how they send it out, had a really smooth process for both creating the signature pages and tracking them, so that you can bring these transactions to a close. So we created a system where we create every signature block in the Doxly system. We then take it and we know what documents require signatures, so then we can create the signature pages themselves. Then, so for each document, we know who signs them, we create the signature page, and that allows us to track it. So this tracker is showing you every single person that needs to sign documents within this transaction and where they are in the signature process. Have they started signing? Are they complete? And we can track it whether it's via DocuSign or manual signature process. With DocuSign, we can tell metadata around when someone's opened it versus whether they haven't seen it. But when we're awaiting signatures, we can actually see when the document was sent out and what signature pages have come in. And so what we've done with our signature tracker solution is we have, using artificial intelligence, we, like here for Jim, what you're able to see is you can view not only the pages that the packet itself or what has been signed, but now we can go in and we can see no matter how many signature pages that I send to him, when he scans them and signs them, he can actually, he sends them back in. Doxly's reading every page that comes in and matching it with the appropriate box. So whether he emails it to his counsel and the counsel uploads it, or he uploads it through his specialized link, all of the signature pages come back into Doxly so we can see it. We also have the ability to send reminders to people that we're waiting signature for. So the whole goal is to really bring everyone together and give control and visibility, never closing a deal with a missing signature page. And through our technology, if Jim isn't able to sign on behalf of the company, we can easily go into the signature block and change the signer. So trying to anticipate every aspect that kind of goes on with the transaction. And then we bring it together because we have every signature page and we have every final document. We can create the closing book at a transaction right at the closing of the deal. So we can decide what goes in the closing book, what sort of formatting options are there, and then we allow for customized signature pages. So all of this allows us to help the law firm and their client close their different transactions in an efficient manner, mitigating the risk around the deal itself of things getting missed or not getting included in the transaction. And then we take that information and we turn it into actionable information for the law firm. They can see the number of deals they've done in any given month, broken down by the type of deals. They can get insight into how their team members are working, the number of deals they're working on, and they can start to get metrics into different information like deal size. And then through our custom reporting, they can create reports. And then we allow them to go one step further. And when you're managing a practice from the partner standpoint, where I was at, we would try to staff deals. And it's always difficult to know how much work and what capacity our associates had. So we created a system where we could get a sense of who is working on different deals, and we can go ahead and help with the staffing aspect of it. And so we're using all of this. Our goal is to provide, transactional groups with a full platform to help them not only plan their day, but move those deals to closing in a way that makes their clients feel more involved in the transaction and helps move things forward to closing.
Sounds great. So, Haley, what's your business model? This is sold to law firms, I understand it, rather than in-house departments? How does your business model work?
Yeah, so right now we're focusing on selling to law firms themselves, since they're the ones that have, the higher volume and different types of transactions. So our business model is to sell to law firms. We sell on a deal package basis, so it's all annual subscriptions, and then we sell a certain package of deals. So we kind of price things on a deal. From my practice and working with different technologies, a lot of times it's you're charged by per user or per amount of data. And we wanted to, and what that can do is discourage people from giving licenses or inviting other people to the room because they want to control their costs or not uploading as much data as they might have in order to keep costs down. And we wanted everyone to be encouraged to invite as many people. So we price on the deal basis so that if you want to add your client, your opposing counsel, the accountant on the transaction, everyone can come together and work on the deal together.
What you think there's other players in that? I mean, I assume there's other players in that space. So a number of companies in the contract management space, and also certain companies is sort of focusing on specific areas like M&A. Where do you place and what differentiates you from your competition?
Yeah, so there are people that kind of play in particularly in different areas of what we're doing. So, you've got a lot of virtual data room companies that are out there and, and some solutions that are kind of focused on contract management. I think the way we differentiate ourselves from kind of the contract management tools is a lot of those are helping negotiate single documents at a specific time. And some of those are allowing for kind of consistent edits where everyone can view them. We're really trying to look at larger document set management, giving a sense of where everything is for the whole checklist. So, not on a single one-to-one document kind of negotiation, really kind of looking at a holistic approach to negotiating all the documents in a transaction. And so we think by providing that fuller platform approach, we kind of differentiate ourselves from people that play in a little bit of a kind of more focused area.
Do you provide that sort of knowledge also for specific transactions? I mean, different transactions have different checklists.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, do you have that? Do you have that knowledge, or is that something you? And then I assume that would have to be kept, updated then for every specific area, right? I mean, there's, IP transactions will have a different checklist from M&A transactions, and it changes all the time. I guess the checklist will change over time, and are you sort of set up to keep those like the practical law company to keep those checklists current?
Yeah, so we do. So for any of what you can see is we have different transaction types where we've traditionally worked with, and what we'll do when we start a deal. So if let me just do new deal, and then you can pick a client, and then close date. And so if I want to pick a venture capital transactions, all this information is optional, but when we create it, it pairs to a checklist that's pre-built for that type of transaction. But let's say it's now built for a Series A transaction, but I want to look at a different template. Maybe I've got an LLC situation. Maybe I've got a convertible note and warrant financing. I can switch out the different checklists. But a lot of times what we want to do is we'll work with different law firms in order to import their checklist. So with a number of our customers, they're sending us the checklist that they like to start with, and we're utilizing each of those as the starting point.
That makes sense. Great. Are there any other questions for Haley? Anyone? Anyone online? Did you charge the firms by seat, or is there like you said it's by transaction?
By deal.
By deal, okay. And then is it based on the deal size, or just there's a standard fee for the deal?
It's a standard fee for the deal, just since it's hard. So we wanted to we priced it kind of just for the overall deal. So number of deals, and then we kind of work with the firms to set up the deal bundle size, like how many deals might they need, and then we can allow for kind of customization. The larger deal package, the per deal price might be adjusted. So we work with the firm on what they need in terms of their different types of transactions, and then we come up with a bundled pricing based on the number of deals they need.
Yeah. So MA chatted a question asking how affordable is this? Can small firms use this, or small firms or solo practitioners?
Yeah, so we actually have clients that are from our smallest client is a solo practitioner who does a number of deals, and they're using it. And we also have large law firms. So we wanted to make the pricing affordable for any size of firm. And so we have clients that are customers that pass on the cost of using Doxly to clients, because clients are normally buying data rooms. So what we wanted to do is provide a solution that would actually be less expensive than the data room that a client might buy on their own. So this way, it's affordable for the law firm to buy it as a tool, but it's also something that, it gives them a benefit to their client. Now their client doesn't have to pay for a separate data room. And we have the same security. We based our security structures off of the more prominent data rooms like Intralinks and Merrill in terms of the security requirements in building Doxly.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any kind of wisdom to share, since you're selling to law firms, and that's a notoriously, not an easy process? Do you have any wisdom to share about how do you approach that sale?
I think, although if anyone would like to share their wisdom with me, I will be happy to take it. It is definitely a difficult process, because, you have to figure out, one, who's the right profile for you. So what we've done is spend a lot of time talking to different law firms and different things to figure out, like, what is the pathway within a law firm. In some instances, we've searched out the practice group leader in a corporate or M&A transactional practice and tried to, get an introduction or get to them first. In some firms, the managing partner may be a former corporate attorney, and that might be an interesting in to us there. But in some instances, we know the firm has a strong technology practice and has a technology committee. So we're constantly trying to do as much research as we can on prospective clients, so that we can find out who might be the best way. And then still, it's a lot of, kind of being prepared and understanding that it's not one meeting. You're not going to find the right person to sell to necessarily in one meeting. Although we did have that happen once, and it was a modern miracle. We got a deal closed in 4 days. But I can assure you that is not the norm sales cycle. But really, what it is for us is finding that, doing as much research as we can, and understanding and being patient to figure out what's the right pathway to a decision maker.
Yeah. I have another question for you. So just coming back to your checklists, you said many times. So some of them you created yourself, but others are created by your customers. That seems like it's very interesting and valuable content in a way. And are your customers open to you sharing your checklists with other customers?
So that's actually, so some are and some aren't. So we've had some where we've where they provide us a checklist and they have no problem with us, and we will ask them, let us know, are you comfortable with this, checklist being a more public resource, or is this or do you want, is this kind of from the outset, do you want this to be a private checklist? We've had people that have been like, I actually want this checklist private just to me because it's for a very specific industry and we don't want people trying to use it outside of that industry. So we've gone as far as to customize it so that an individual partner's checklist was only viewable and that deal type was only viewable by that partner. So we're kind of used to in legal, it's like, here's a good standard. Also, here are the 19 edge cases we would prefer you to solve for us right now. So we'll try to be as flexible as we can, but any of the ones that have been shared, we add to the public resource. So we've been continuing to build out the public resource, and then, but then also abiding by firms, kind of proprietary sides.
That makes sense. Daniel is asking, does Doxly use some blockchain tech to verify documents as signatures?
We don't use blockchain right now, but our engineering team, we have considered building blockchain in, especially on the into the signature side of it. But right now, what our engineering team has kind of built this like proprietary solution that they tag all their documents with in a way that allows us to recognize them and bring them back into the system and identify where they need to go.
Cool. Any other questions for Haley? No? All right, then. Well, thank you so much, Haley. Very cool. Thank you for your time and presentation.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with those sales.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll see you all at the session next week?
Next week.
All right, so see you all again next week. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.